your boy, Patrick Troughton, and Season 4 of Classic Doctor Who had an absolutely significant role in continuing the success of the William Hartnell era, as well as paving the way for a new generation of Doctor Who fans. So today, we're going to take a look back at the triumphs and the losses of that very season. Let's get into it. Hello everybody and welcome back to Time of the Whovians United. Today, we will be reviewing Season 4 of Classic Doctor Who. Now, if you've not seen our reviews for Seasons 1, 2 or 3, go and check them out in the playlist below. Pause the video right now, go watch those videos and then come back to this one. Well, without further ado, let's get started.
Hello, it's Doinkadect Clumberbatch here again. You may remember me from last month's Season 3 video. Don't worry, I'm not doing all of them, so next month you get someone else. Yeah, you want to hear more of my thoughts, you can check out the Season 3 video on this channel, and yeah, thanks for having me back again. Of course, I covered William Hartnell in last month's video, so I'll just repeat some points from that. Hartnell had definitely softened in his portrayal of the Doctor over his 3 and a bit seasons in the role, and at this point he is very much just sort of like the frippery old grandfather with a bit of comedy in his performance. Of course, this season is mainly that of Troughton's, because unfortunately Hartnell's health wouldn't allow him to play the role anymore, and you must, commend them for just deciding to go completely different. They didn't just cast, Hartnell 2.0, they actually got a completely different actor.
There is a grand comparison between Patrick Troughton and William Hartnell. Literally, same character, different personality. They have nailed this. You've gone from old grumpy grandpa to a space hobo. That change is perfect. Literally, even Ben and Polly have no idea what's going off.
And you must commend him for having the balls to do a completely different take on the character. Of course, the sort of comedy was still there, but Troughton introduced his own style of comedy. He much more emulated Charlie Chaplin's hobo character, which is of course why Troughton's Doctor is referred to as the Cosmic Hobo.
Their portrayal of post-regeneration nausea sickness is absolutely perfect. The Doctor has no idea who he is. He's trying to find himself, he's walking off, he's talking to himself, he's going a bit mad, going a bit mental, going a bit wonky. And that's awesome. He's literally changed completely, and has showed how he's dealing with that absolutely perfectly.
He was much more animated in the role, able to run around a lot more, whereas Hartnell, of course, with his sort of older physique, was able to do it, but not so much as Troughton, running up and down corridors as much. Well, there were 4 companions in this season, with Victoria only turning up towards the end, midway through the Evil of the Daleks.
So far, she's okay, she's nice, but obviously she will develop more in the next season.
But this season's mostly dominated by that of Ben and Polly, who are very much just, the straightforward, 60s male and female characters. There wasn't really that much development to their characters, and that's why they decided to leave, though they are very much a unit. They're a pair. You always get Ben and Polly, you never get one without the other really, and that's why Annika Wills decided to leave when Michael Craze did. They are decent companions, but there doesn't appear to be that much to them, but that could just be because of the fact that so little of their episodes are surviving.
Ben and Polly for me were very likeable characters, but they were very short and sweet. They weren't around for very long. They had a role to play, they had a part to play, they always got involved with the story. But I want to see more of them. I really wish they could stay for longer so we could see more of them. And they got on well with the Doctor and Jamie, but they just weren't here, unfortunately, for very long.
But the best companion, not just of this season, but pretty much of all of Doctor Who, is, well, Fraser Hines' Jamie McCrimmon, a Scottish Highlander who, being from the past, they tried that before with Katarina, it didn't work, so it was really weird for them to do it again. But it's because Fraser Hines and Patrick Troughton just had such famous chemistry that he was kept on all the way through Troughton's run, because they just was so brilliant together, and I mean, that again part of the reason why the show was so successful in the long run.
Jamie McCrimmon is my favourite companion so far. He's an absolute OG. His character and personality is great. His humour is fantastic. His dynamic with the Doctor is awesome. but it's got its energy, it rubs off. It's amazing. My favourite lines from Jamie is when he calls monsters beasties. Like, great beasties! He's fantastic.
The villains of this season are a mixed bunch. The smugglers and the Highlanders, I honestly can't even think who the villains are in those ones. So you have the fish people in the Underwater Menace. They're not really that threatening, but I mean, they're being led by the mad scientist Professor Saroff, who is very much, you know, just a classical mad scientist type, but his performance is very well done. And you know, I'll never forget the famous line, "Nothing in the world can stop me now!" There's also the Macro, who, you know, actually got brought back for the new series, though completely different, who, you know, giant crabs who convince you they're not there. That's quite original. The chameleons and the faceless ones, they just feel like, you know, an early attempt at the Zygons, which just aren't as good. Of course, the Daleks appear twice in this season, and well, any season that has the Daleks in, you can say the Daleks are the best villain in.
Absolutely destructive, the best I've seen so far. Them at their best and they're most powerful. Absolutely great. The Power of the Daleks, best Dalek story so far.
But for season 4, you really must, you know, highlight the Cybermen who were introduced in the season. They were a very original idea by Dr. Kit Pedler, preying on the fears of synthetic limbs and pacemakers, that humans were starting to become more machines than humans, you know, where that could lead. And the sort of body horror in them is what really makes them stand out and are so creepy and memorable. They used to be humans like us. So it's no wonder that they got brought back so quickly, only a couple of months after they were first introduced.
My standout villains for this season have got to be my boys, the men in shining armour, the Cybermen. They came in with 10th Planet. Really great introduction. Part human, part robot. You can see there's something living inside. Absolutely creepy and weird. They came back in the Moonbase, new design, but still the atmosphere around them is incredible. I will talk more about this in another video, but for me, they are creepy and the best villains so far.
At the bottom of the season, I'd have to put the smugglers. It's just very much, you know, silly run around pirate story. There's not really that much to it I can think of. It probably would have been quite well done with, you know, props and costumes that the BBC were very good at with historicals, but the fact that none of that survives means you've just got this pretty generic story that I'm just not really that interested in.
In at number 9 is The Smugglers. It's audio based, so I can't really say much about it. 5 out of 10.
Second from the bottom, I would have to say, is the Underwater Menace. The fish people in it just aren't that good, and Professor Zaroff again is very much just, you know, the classical mad scientist type, though he is done very well. It's a decentish story, but I mean, they just don't manage to get enough story to fill out 4 parts.
In at number 8 is The Highlanders. Again, it's audio based. I can't say much, so 5 out of 10.
And number 7 is The Highlanders, the last ever historical if you exclude Black Orchid. This story is noticeable for being the story that introduced Fraser Hines' Jamie McCrimmon, and you can't really fault it for that, but again, there's nothing surviving from it, so it's hard really to judge it. Again, the BBC would have probably been quite good with their sets and costumes in this, but none of that survives, and what you've got is just a run around in the Scottish Highlands.
In at number 7 is The Underwater Menace. 7 out of 10. Zaroff, great villain. The fish people, pretty well designed. The effects are okay for the time. It's an okay story, pretty fun.
Number 6 is The Faceless Ones, which has recently been animated, and the animation is, you know, beautiful as ever. But again, it's very much like they're just doing an early concept for the Zygons. It's interesting that they set it at an airport, but again, the story doesn't really have that much going for it. It's a decent story, but unfortunately falls quite low on this list because, you know, this is actually quite a strong season.
In at number 6 is the Macro Terra. The Macro are pretty intimidating, pretty weird, quite mysterious. The music is slightly annoying, only a little bit though, only a little bit. But overall, really good story.
At number 5 is the Macro Terra. Again, it's recently been animated beautifully, but this one has a very interesting concept going for it. You know, people are denying that these giant crabs are controlling everything from behind the scenes. Again, Ian Stuart Black was quite good at these sort of conceptual stories, and of course the thing about the Macro Terra is that the Macro are just don't look that great. They're very shoddy. In fact, they stopped working with the people who made them after that story. But of course, the fact that it's been so beautifully animated means that you can get past the bad effects. You can see decent looking Macro. And of course, the thing is that Macro were actually brought back for the new series, though they were in a completely different way.
In at number 5 is the Faceless Ones. I love the mystery behind it, the development, the tension. Really good, well paced as well, really well engaged. Good story.
At number 4, and I know you're going to disagree with me on this one, is the Moonbase. A solid Cyberman story, quite creepy, being set on the Moonbase, which, as we all know, the moon's an egg. Controlling the weather, of course, is science fiction, and it's a bit ludicrous, but again, it brings the Cybermen back and hasn't lessened them in any way. The Cybermen are still just as creepy. In fact, they've been upgraded, they've changed. In fact, they change in almost every story that we see them in, because that's what they do, they alter themselves. The only fault I really have with the story is the fact that I just don't really like the animation. It's I just don't like it. I don't know why people do.
Number 4, the Evil of the Daleks. I love how the Daleks are using the Doctor to try and make them even more powerful, find the Dalek factor, I believe, and that's what it's called. But yeah, Daleks are great, intimidating, quite threatening, but not as good as the other one. Alright.
Number 3 is Evil of the Daleks, the second Dalek story of this season, and it was quite a large-scale story, quite an explosive story, intended to show the ultimate destruction of the Daleks. Of course, that will never actually happen. We see the Dalek Emperor on Skaro, we see what Skaro's like with the Dalek Empire on it. And of course, it goes into sort of humane aspects of the Daleks. They're trying to get the human factor into them, which is an interesting take in the Daleks, that they would try to make themselves more like us. And of course, just all the performances in this story are just, amazing.
Number 3, 10th Planet. Awesome introduction to the Cybermen. Awesome, creepy, intimidating, weird, well-paced story. Great little bow out for William Hartnell.
At number 2 is the 10th Planet, and now this one is very significant in Doctor Who history for not one but 2 reasons. It introduces the Cybermen with their cloth faces and human hands still. It shows Cybermen at a very primitive stage. This obviously was unintentional because the Cybermen hadn't been fully developed at this point, but they really highlight the idea behind them because they're being introduced. It's not so much the story to it, not much really happens, but the way that they're portrayed, the way that they're brought across, you're really being shown what the Cybermen are, and you must commend this story for them. Also in the story is the concept of regeneration. The Doctor regenerates for the first time in the story. We get introduced to the idea, and it's a brilliant idea. I've gone through this before. They completely changed the character. They didn't just do Hartnell 2.0. They showed that the Doctor is an alien. He doesn't die, he just becomes a new man, and that was such a great idea. And for those 2 reasons, you cannot fault the 10th Planet, even though the actual story to it doesn't really have that much going for it.
In at number 2 is the Moonbase, my favourite Cyberman story so far. Of course, there's only 2. Great pacing, great atmosphere, really tense, really mysterious, really creepy, they were great, even though they've been redesigned and the voices are a bit hard to understand. I still love it. I still love them.
At number 1, I have to put the one and only, The Power of the Daleks, taking place straight after the 10th Planet. This was a story that introduced the second Doctor and brought the Daleks back after the Daleks master plan. And the thing about the story is that it's 6 episodes long and all episodes are missing, yet just by watching the telesnaps, by listening to the soundtrack, you're at the edge of your seat for the full 6 episodes. It's brilliant tension, the directing in it's so great that it gets through the fact that there's no video there. And the animation as well is great, though they are updating it, so it'll be interesting to see how they improve on it. But it's just such a great cinematic story that's just, it's so eerie. That it starts off, there are 2 Daleks without a gun, then they get their guns back, then there are 3 Daleks and 4 Daleks, and suddenly there's conveyor belts of Daleks just coming at you. And it's then just ends in a bloodbath, and it really just brings out the fear factor in the Daleks, and it's just amazing that this completely missing story is able to do that.
And at number 1 is the power of the Daleks. Absolutely phenomenal. The Daleks here are at the very best, at the most powerful, absolutely destructive. I love the game they play. They pretend to be slaves. Everybody thinks they're okay. Then they're harmless. They're just robots. They're not going to do anything, are they? And then bam! full power, full force. Here we are, everybody. You're all gonna die. I love the scene where they're just attacking everybody, gunning them all down. Fearless, absolutely bang, bang, bang. You're all dead. Haha, we win. And then the Doctor comes along and goes, no, actually, you lose. So absolutely fantastic story.
Well, thanks for having me on again, and if you haven't already, you can see my thoughts on season 3 on this channel, or you can check out my own channel, or follow me on Twitter at Doinkadect.
And there you have it. That was our review of season 4 of classic Doctor Who. Now, I'd like to say a big thank you for Doinkadect for coming back and appearing on our reviews once again. Go and check out his channel. It'll be in the link in the description and at the end of the video. What do you guys think? What are your favourite stories of the season 4? Do you agree with our opinions? Do you disagree? Go and post them in the comments below and have a great, friendly discussion and just debate it. Why not do that? If you like this video, go in and give it a nice big like and subscribe again. We are almost there. We're slowly approaching that 1K mark. If you want to help us, feel free and give us a subscribe and help us get closer to that goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. I shall see you next time. See ya.